Speaker recognizes the honourable member for Mount Pearl Southlands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And certainly it's great to be back in the House of Assembly again, and want to welcome everybody back. I'm sure we all enjoyed having the opportunity of getting out and about in our districts and talking to the people and hearing what they have to say, and hopefully we're going to bring their views forward in the House of Assembly as we proceed. Madam Speaker, there are many things I could speak about, and I guess we're into address and reply, so it's wide open basically to speak about whatever you wish, whether it be about your district or whether it be about issues occurring in the province and so on. And there certainly are a number of things. I'm not going to dwell on the budget today. There's going to be lots of opportunity as time goes on to talk about that. I will say, though, that I guess as was predicted at the time and as was said at the time, we've seen a number of people that I'm sure we've all heard from. I know we've all heard from some of them who continue to have challenges, very significant challenges, as it relates to, I guess, the impacts of the budget on their households, and it's quite unfortunate to say the least. But it's something I'm going to talk about another time. What I want to talk about today, Madam Chair, is I want to talk about Nalcor. And we've had some discussion, certainly in question period today, around the former CEO's contract and how that went down, who knew what, and so on. But that's not really the piece I want to talk about. I want to talk about, I guess, Nalcor in general, and I want to talk about the Muskrat Falls project, a project that I did stand up and vote for, and I've openly, it's on the record anyway, I have no problem saying I did, because I did at the time based on the information that I was provided, my colleagues were provided, and I did so in what I felt to be the best interests of the people and of my constituents at the time. And based on the information, as I said, that was provided, and taking the word, I guess, of people as to that the information that you were given was accurate information, that the assumptions were correct, that the numbers were correct, and not being an in here ourselves. Certainly, I guess we've had engineers who have been MHAs. In the past, we've had lawyers. We have lawyers here, but a lot of us are not necessarily engineers or experts in electricity and so on, so we have to take advice, and the best advice we can get from the people who we feel ought to know the appropriate information, and we all vote on things based on that advice and so on. But as we know, Nalcor has been, I guess, shrouded in controversy now for many, many months. And is around a number of issues. One of the issues, of course, was Dark NL, and we all know what happened with that. We all know about the subsequent Liberty report, which came out, and of course, in their Liberty report, basically, the reason why we had Dark NL was because a decision had been made by officials at Newfoundland Hydro, I guess, expand that, Nalcor, and expand that again, perhaps the Minister of the day, the Premier of the day, who knows. But a decision had been made not to do maintenance in Holyrood. And as a result of that maintenance not getting done, we ended up with people in the dark for a number of days. Some people lost their power for longer than others. Some people fared well. For some people, it was actually an opportunity for the family to get together and actually spend some time together and spend time as a family and have barbecues and whatever the case might be to get through it and light the wood stove or the fireplace if you had one, and so on. And it was a positive experience in some regards for some people. But for other people, and a lot of people, of course, we had senior citizens that had to be evacuated from nursing homes, and we had people who just certainly couldn't cope with the power outage, and they were cold and in the dark and so on. Like I said, particularly people who might be seniors, persons with disabilities, and all those issues. We had the village mall, the pipes burst and shut down the village for a number of months, and people lost their jobs for a significant period of time. No money coming in the door. So there was a lot of negative impacts of dark NL. And like I said, when we go back to the Liberty report, we find out that somebody with Newfoundland Newfoundland Hydro, and I guess Nalcor, decided we weren't going to do basic maintenance in Holyrood on the equipment. And instead of us finding out after the fact, once all this came to light, that there were pink slips handed out, instead of hearing about pink slips, we heard that they were handing out corporate bonuses. Great job, boys. Great job. Couldn't keep the lights on, and everyone gets a bonus. And no heads rolled at all, which is quite mind-boggling when you think about it. And it certainly wouldn't happen in private industry, at least none of the private companies I work for, I can guarantee you that. Then, of course, and that's just one issue. And then, of course, we've heard, we know, I guess, the controversy that, as we talked about, that happened as a result of the former CEO departing. And at the time, we also know of the former chair of the board and allegations that he made. He was making allegations of conflict of interest. And then the most troubling part about that is that this was something that, I can remember it was in CBC at the time, and talking about the fact, well, I know for sure there was conflicts of interest, but if he knew it then, he knew it months prior, but he never said nothing months prior. So why would that be? And then that leads you to believe, or question at least, could there be other potential conflicts of interest? I'm not saying there are. I'm not using my words. I'm using his that were put out there publicly. And, of course, we look at the Muskrat Falls project now, and I can remember when it was debated here in the House and so on, and I can remember the issue of methylmercury being brought forward. And certainly I was told, and my colleagues at the time told, this project could have an impact in terms of methylmercury, but we're very confident that it won't be an issue, that levels will be acceptable and so on. Now, here we are well into the project, and there's still outstanding issues, and it seems like the information we were given was not correct information. Certainly, there's a lot of conflicting information. We were told at the time, I can remember when the issue of the North Spur was raised, and there was people raising that issue. And I went to Nalcor's AGM, it was at the Holiday Inn, and that question was put to the floor to the former CEO. He deferred it to the gentleman in charge of the project. I forget what his title is, but anyway. And who said, we are aware of the North Spur issue. We have an engineering solution in place, and that engineering solution is included in the cost estimates, which at the time was $6 billion. Have it in place, and it's included in the $6 billion. Now we know, of course, that still seems to be up in the air. And obviously it wasn't included in the $6 billion because we're going way beyond that. Now we're up to 11 point something billion, and people are saying it could grow even further. We've seen all of the overruns, the huge overruns, the massive overruns that have occurred, and all the time delays, and all the things that have happened. And because of all these things, and because of all these numbers that were put out there, people have lost confidence. People have lost confidence. And now, there are allegations out there now. If you look on, I realize social media is not the be-all and end-all, I can guarantee you that, and there's a lot of hearsay, but certainly there's a blog out there now in social media whereby allegedly there's an engineer who's come forward anonymously who allegedly worked on the project, who said that he had to quit. He had to quit working on that project, quit working for Nalcor because of false numbers being generated and put out there to the public. Fudging of numbers. Now, that's what's out there. Now, I don't know. I can't swear if that's true or if it's not true. It's all allegations, it's all hearsay. But it's very concerning. It's very concerning for me as somebody who stood up here and voted for that based on what I felt was the accurate information from the people who were in the know or ought to have been in the know, the so-called experts. And I stood up and voted for it, and other people did. And I feel betrayed and hoodwinked. Quite frankly, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. By having information and assumptions put out there that now obviously is not the case. Obviously it's not the case. The numbers are nowhere close to what we said the numbers were going to be, and lots of information that we were told here is not the reality today. And I'm very concerned about that. And I know Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are very concerned about that. So with all that said, what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? And I realize the government have said they're doing things to try to get the project on track and on time and on budget. Well, it's not going to be on budget, but I mean, obviously is to try to make the best they can of a bad situation. And one can argue whether they're doing enough or they're not doing enough or whatever, and I'm not going to argue that. I'm sure they're doing the best they can. But with all of the concerns that have been raised, it is beyond me why everybody in this House would not agree to bring the Auditor General into Nalcor to do a complete, thorough review of their operations and to look at matters that have been raised, look at the issues around Dark NL, who knew what, who told who we weren't going to do maintenance and why, and if those individuals are still there, and who they were given their marching orders from if they were, to look into these allegations of conflicts of interest, to look into these allegations of false numbers and information being put out there, to look into all of these contracts that have been awarded at Muskrat Falls and so on, and the huge overruns. The Auditor General should be in there to do that. Now, the Auditor General is in there right now. We know he's in there now because the public took it upon themselves in an email campaign
Order, please.
To contact the Auditor General, basically, and to fill his email box up with requests to go into Nalcor. And thankfully, he has agreed, and he's in there now. The problem we have, though, Madam Speaker, the problem we have is that he only has a finite number of resources, and basically they're just going in there, they're going to pick a couple of items, some small, bite-sized chunks, if you will, a couple of things they can look at, and bring forward a report either in the spring or this fall. We don't know what it is that he's going to look at, or what he's not going to look at, and if it's, you know, and I certainly would hope he's going to look at the more serious things and the more serious allegations than to simply just look at some routine. We need to give the Auditor General the go-ahead. We need to say to the Auditor General, we want you to go into Nalcor, and we're going to provide you with all the resources you require to do a full analysis of the operations at Nalcor, to do a full analysis of some of these controversies and allegations, some of these contracts that have been awarded, to get to the bottom of it and clear the air once and for all, so that we know that our Crown Corporation is working in our best interest. And I'm not saying they're not. I don't know if they are or if they're not. I honestly don't know. I know there's an awful lot of inconsistencies, and I know the price of Muskrat Falls has gone through the roof, and I know that there have been all kinds of allegations made, whether they're true or not, I don't know, but they're out there and they're being made, and people have concerns. So I don't know why we wouldn't simply bring in the AG now, well, he's in there now anyway, give him the resources he needs to do a full, comprehensive review and come forward with a report so that we can finally clear the air, and if there's things that happen that shouldn't be happening, to clean it up. And if that means having to make wholesale changes, that's what it means. If it means having to bring in the authorities, if that's what it means, that's what it means. And I don't know if it does or it doesn't. I have no idea. I'm not suggesting it would, but whatever needs to happen, give them the authority to go in there, do the review, and do what we have to do to clean it up and restore the people's faith in our Crown Corporation. Because that faith has been lost. The faith has been lost. And even though we have a new CEO, Mr. Marshall, and I'm not questioning his integrity or ability or whatever, but simply just changing the person sitting in that seat is not going to cut it if there's been all kinds of things done and all the other same players are in place and these matters are not being brought forward to the public in a transparent manner. So, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, sorry, you've changed chairs. I really believe, I honestly believe, that's what we need to do. And I can't see why every member of this House would not be supportive of doing that. I can't understand. I wrote the Premier. I wrote the Premier months ago, and I requested it. I never even got a reply to the letter. Not even, I've received your correspondence, thank you for your feedback. Nothing. Nothing. So I can only assume he doesn't want to do it, and I don't know why he wouldn't. Especially given the fact that all of the issues I've described all happened under a former administration. It's not like he was even there. It's not even like this government was there. So it's just mind-boggling why we wouldn't want to do it. It needs to be done in order to restore people's faith in our Crown Corporation. A Crown Corporation, by the way, that's a huge part of our future. A huge part of our future. Whether it be, oil and gas, or whether it be other forms of energy, it's going to play a significant role, a huge role in our future. And there's no reason why we wouldn't all want to right the ship and to get to the bottom of any controversy that's there and to clear the air, take whatever action needs to be taken, and move forward. There's no reason why in this House of Assembly why every member here shouldn't want to do that. It needs to be done. It needs to be done as soon as possible. Because we're still spending billions. We're still spending billions. And before I run out of time, I do want to say as well that while we hear all of this, controversy, and while I raise this today, this is no way a reflection of the lot of good people that are there at Nalcor and with Newfoundland Hydro and so on, who are out in the worst kind of weather, working the lines, and all the other things they do. And there's very qualified, capable people there that work hard every day, and I'm sure it's a black eye on them. I've talked to a couple of them who said that morale is really, really poor in a lot of cases because that shadow is hanging over that organization, and they feel it. And they shouldn't have to. No different than what was said here, the Minister of Justice said earlier when he talked about the RNC. Just because there was a couple of incidents or, a bad apple here or there, which you find in every organization, we shouldn't tar the RNC with a negative brush. If there are individuals or if there are issues that happen, you deal with those. But by and large, it's a great organization, the RNC is. And Nalcor, I'm sure, is no different. Very qualified, very professional people, but we need to get to the bottom of the issues which are causing all of the concern for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I certainly call upon all my colleagues here today, particularly the Minister and the government, to give the AG is in there now, give them the mandate to do a sweeping review and provide them with the resources to do so. Please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.